So you want to get better at running, or perhaps you've fallen out of love with the sport and looking for a little extra motivation to get back on the wagon. Well, I hear you. I've been there too. I used to think running was quite a divisive sport. People were either runners or they weren't. And I used to put myself firmly in that second category, the definitely not a runner one. And even when I started running regularly, I had a kind of imposter syndrome. I was just someone that ran, not a proper runner, you know? But that's now all changed. The more I ran and the more I learned, the more I enjoyed it. I could feel myself kind of leveling up as a runner, and I consolidated what I learned into a few bite-sized points. And I'm telling you, anyone can do what I did and learn to love the sport and reach those high levels of performance. Well, in this video, I'm going to run through my 6 tips on how you can level up your running and unlock some of your potential. And most importantly, start to enjoy your running. Hopefully there's some nuggets of wisdom in there for all abilities, with the last few tips being especially important for more seasoned runners looking to fall back in love with their sport. So let's get straight into it. As I said, if you want to level up your running, you're going to want to enjoy it. The main thing that I find that stops people enjoying their running is the perception that it's really hard. That every run needs to be a 10 out of 10 effort and faster than the last time. Not only does this act as a mental barrier to getting off the sofa and going out and running, but training this way is also likely to lead to burnout and possible injury somewhere down the line. There's a time and a place for faster tempo or interval runs, but for most people, the majority of their running should be at a slow pace, where they can sustain a conversation or in heart rate zone 2. And this might feel surprisingly slow for a lot of people. If you're a beginner, you might even have to do a combination of running and walking to stay in those lower heart rate zones. But this type of running helps to build your aerobic base, and in turn will make you faster. And additionally, more able to cope with harder and faster training runs in the future. It's a weird paradox that running slower can make you faster over time, but it's a trick that you should be taking advantage of. So the easiest way to get better at running is just to run more. It's as simple as that. If you're only running a couple of 5Ks each week, it's going to be very hard to make any progress after the first couple of months. You've got to increase your running volume. Volume just refers to how much of an activity you do, multiplied by your relative intensity that you do it at. And the easiest way for most people to increase their running volume is just to simply run more miles each week. And just by doing this, you'll be building your aerobic endurance and be able to run further and faster and be a more efficient runner at the same time. And if you're not doing this already, a great way to increase your running volume each week is to add in a long run. The focus of this longer run is just on spending more time on your feet, running at a gentle pace that you could easily hold a conversation at. For most people, adding in a dedicated longer run once a week is easier than having to squeeze in 2 or 3 shorter runs over the same period of time. Just be careful not to increase your running volume or your mileage by more than 10% each week. And as I mentioned earlier, running volume is not just simply the mileage that you're covering each week, but the intensity that you're covering that mileage at also. Limiting this volume increase to 10% each week and adding in a deload week every 2 or 3 months is essential to training sustainably into the future and avoiding injury. And just quickly, if you're enjoying this video, please drop it a like and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out. But moving on. Unlike a lot of sports where you really need to splash the cash just to get started, all you need to run is a decent pair of running shoes. If you don't know what you're doing, get yourself down to your local running shop and they'll be able to advise what's best for you. This is the one bit of running equipment that it's worth investing in. Getting a well-fitting pair of running shoes will make running more comfortable, provide support for your foot and ankle, and reduce your risk of injury as well. That being said, also make sure that you're not running these shoes into the ground, if you'll pardon the pun. Most running shoes have a life expectancy of around 500 miles, and anything after this, the shoe's integrity starts to break down and all the benefits that you were getting kind of go out the window. At this point, it's just worth biting the bullet and getting a new pair. And although by no means essential, I'd highly recommend getting a running watch if you don't already have one. I started off with this pretty entry-level Garmin watch, and it served me really well for about a year. I only ended up upgrading to the Apple Watch just because it stored podcasts and music that I could listen to while I was running without having to take my phone. Other than that, they do the same job. It just makes tracking your mileage, your running pace, and your heart rate zone so much easier, which is important the more you run. As you get more advanced, if you want to, you can start branching out into the difference between daily trainers, faster race day shoes, things like running vests, more expensive smartwatches and running gear. But unlike cycling, with running, you don't need to be the sort of person willing to plough their entire life savings into the sport just to call themselves a weekend warrior. Just focus on a decent pair of shoes and the rest can come later. Most running injuries, outside of freak accidents like broken bones, tend to find their root cause in things like overtraining, poor flexibility, or muscular imbalances. And the biggest thing that stops me from enjoying my running is getting a silly injury and not being able to train. But to be honest, preventing injury is often within your control. One of the best ways that you can level up your running is to focus on what I call pre-hab. Anyone that's ever seen a physio after an injury knows the deal. In the first instance, the treatment plan is going to be some combination of rest, flexibility, and gradual strength training. And if you've got an injury, I recommend you go see a physio who can deal with that. But the essence of pre-hab is doing these things before you get the injury and hopefully prevent it from happening. Over the last few months, I've started integrating a routine of stretching and strengthening exercises, especially for my lower body, after developing a series of predictable silly injuries as I went from someone who never ran to someone who ran 3 or 4 times a week. A quick YouTube search will show you hundreds of videos with titles like stretching routine for runners or strengthening exercises for runners, any combination of which you can use. The goal of these exercises is to increase your flexibility and also strengthen support structures in the lower body like tendons and ligaments. Developing a routine like this will help to better adapt these structures to the stimulus that regular running exerts on them. Integrating this pre-hab into my routine, alongside slow and cautious increases in my weekly training volume, has been crucial in allowing me to run injury-free over the last few months. One of the hands down best ways to enjoy your running is to enter more events. Running can often be seen as a lonely activity, and it is, especially if you only ever run by yourself. That's why I'd strongly encourage you to get on Google and just start searching for local running events. And once you've found some, just start booking them. These don't need to be marathons or half marathons in major cities with hefty registration fees and thousands of people. I'm talking about local cross-country events, 10k races, or even your local park run. In fact, the more local the event, the more amateur-friendly it tends to be. There'll be a range of abilities, from beginners to more advanced runners, but you'll slot in nicely, I promise you. There are 2 clear benefits that I see to this. First of all, it gives you something to work towards. If you have an event or a race booked in your calendar every 3 to 4 months, it gives you something to build towards in your training. And secondly, it turns running into a social sport. The focus of these more local events isn't necessarily to try and win it or even get a better time than you did last time. It's just to take time out of a busy schedule and enjoy yourself. You might run a new route that you've not done before, run on a surface that you're not used to, run with a friend or a group of runners, or meet other like-minded individuals. My wife and I have a 16-mile cross-country event coming up this weekend, a really local village affair. It costs us about 25 quid each to enter. We're not doing it to get a new 16-mile PB. Like, who even knows what a good 16-mile time is? We're doing it to challenge ourselves, to run further than we might normally do, or run on a surface that's probably a lot muddier than we used to. The point is, getting involved with local running events and the community of runners that attend them just helps keep you more motivated in your training and enjoying the sport of running. And my last bit of advice, and what really caused me to fall in love with running, is getting off the roads and onto the trails. Running on tarmac road surfaces is often the most practical and accessible way to get your miles in. But taking time every now and then to get to a local park or a nearby trail is a great way to learn to love running. Not only does it let you immerse yourself in nature and explore new areas, but running on softer surfaces is much easier on your joints than constantly pounding the pavement. I did a whole other video, which I'll link somewhere up here, so I won't bang on about it too much, but honestly, trust me, give it a go. Well, that's everything for today. I hope that I was able to convince some of you that with a few minor adjustments, you can level up your running and start to think of yourself as a proper runner, with a capital R. Let me know down in the comments how you got on with this advice, or if you think that there's anything I might have missed. And if you enjoyed this video, please drop it a like and subscribe for more running, lifting and general fitness content. And I'll see you again next time.